So we left off at genetics versus epigenetics. This is talking about Adam and Eve, and the occupation that they were given turned to a preoccupation. Now, I have to admit, several of you came to me after this morning's presentation, and I was happy that you did. I actually enjoy answering questions a lot more than I enjoy just sharing information, because it means that you're asking the things that you really want to hear about. So I will go fast, and if I go too fast and you miss something, feel free to ask. Okay, there was one slight misunderstanding that I wanted to clarify with the epigenetics. I'm sure we have some geneticists among us, and we have several of you who have at least studied biology, or maybe you're in the medical field, and you had questions. Epigenetics is not a license to do what you want and behave how you want. When the research was done and they discovered that gene that I told you about, DRD4, the men that they found to be affected by the effects of having that gene were not excused. It's just like, for instance, we know that 20% of inmates, men, in prison, by some estimates, 20% of them have what we call an antisocial personality disorder. But this doesn't get them out of prison. Does that make sense? So what we say in psychological fields is that a personality is a disposition. It's not your destiny. So there's no man or woman that can say, well, I did this or I did that because Dr. Jacob or any of the other presenters here said that I would, or said that I could. What it means is that you have a predisposition to do certain things. If you had parents that were alcoholics, or you had parents that were obese, it does not mean that you will either grow up to be obese or alcoholic. It just simply means that genetically, you have a predisposition. What it means is if you weren't careful, you could be the one, like your parents, that struggled with alcoholism. So then what do? You'd probably be the one to stay away from drinking altogether. And that's how it works. So it's not an excuse. I just wanted to make that clear. And also, epigenetics was my way of explaining to you why, and we know about original sin, we know about the sinful nature, but it explains why Adam and Eve's behavior carried down through the generations. It explains why Eve was so confused when, in spite of her best efforts, and I know that she tried to make up for it by having her children know everything they could possibly know about God, yet still, Cain killed Abel. She actually lost 2 sons in one day. And I know she did everything that she could, except that epigenetically, things passed down to the children. And I say epigenetically instead of genetically because, remember, God created Adam and Eve perfectly. So it couldn't be genetics. It has to be something that happened beyond that. And that's where epigenetics comes in. Okay? All right. We are going to run straight to the others. We discussed all of these. Okay. For this one, I need some feedback from you. I need for some brave souls here to rank each group's divorce rate from highest to lowest. Take a minute, take a look. Here are some groups, and I want you to tell me. Now, I don't have any prizes, but I don't have any punishment either. So take a minute, and when you're ready, raise your hand and tell me in rank order who you think has the highest divorce rate and who you think has the lowest divorce rate. Volunteers? Don't overthink it. Okay, I have one hand. Okay, I didn't hear everything. Bible Belt Christians was number 1, meaning that they have the lowest. Oh, okay. And who else? And what about Seventh-day Adventists?
Probably second highest.
Really? Second highest?
Yes, because the enemy is tempting them. The hardest.
Okay,
Probably.
and the enemy doesn't care if the atheists stay together or separate.
He lets them be if they're, with him and other things, I think.
Okay, I agree in
But
part.
he does bother them.
I agree in part, but then shouldn't the Seventh-day Adventists...
Probably be number one.
Yes, why aren't the Seventh-day Adventists number one?
Because it's the Bible Belt is in the South, and well, I've been there, and it seems very sinful to me. So, people don't take the commitment of marriage very seriously there.
Okay, I couldn't speak to sinfulness in the South. I mean, the furthest I've gone, I think that I could even make a comparison is New Orleans, and that was just the city of New Orleans. It wasn't the state. So I couldn't say, but that's a good guess. Thank you. Anybody else with a guess? That's different.
I will say about the same between the Bible Belt Christian and the Seventh Day being on the top, and the atheists and the non-practicing Christians on the bottom. And the reason is because most of the atheists or non-practicing Christians don't get married. So the ones that get married, they're probably a little more committed than that, therefore stay married.
Okay, and if I change my definition to these are all married individuals, these are all couples, how would that change your answer?
Well, no, it's still the same, because about atheists, you're talking about a percentage within atheists that actually get married.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, but that percentage that actually got to get married out of the whole bunch of atheists are probably already committed and have lived together for a long time or something like that.
Okay, so those we have two answers that are almost the same, but the reasons are a little different. Anybody else with a different answer or different reason? Peterson, is it?
Jackson.
Jeff, okay.
Jackson. I would think the Seventh-day Adventist should have the lowest rate of divorce, and the next lowest rate of divorce should be the Bible Belt Christians, and probably then in the number 2 spot would be the atheists, and the number 1 spot, the highest, would be non-practicing Christians.
So you think that the atheists should have a lower divorce rate than the non-practicing Christians? Lower, you said? Lower, is that correct?
Yes.
Why is that?
People can be pretty content in sin. We see that there's some marriages in Hollywood that actually work. I mean, obviously some people have 7, 8, 10 different spouses, but some of them are happy.
Okay. All right, thank you. Good answers all. And I think the next time I ask this question, the next conference I attend, I think I'm going to rephrase it and ask you to rank the groups in the order that you think they should be, as opposed to the order that they really are. Because eventually I think word will get out on the correct order, and I think most of us will know. Okay, so the lady in the back that said Bible Belt Christians had the highest divorce rate, you are correct. They do. It's ironic that they do, because they are the evangelical Christians, they are the born-again Christians, they are the ones that when you meet them in the marketplace will take a minute to ask you, excuse me, are you born again? Are you saved? Total strangers. They're the ones that do that. And so it's incomprehensible that you motivated enough, you on fire enough to ask a question like that of a total stranger, but your divorce rate is the highest. No judgment, no condemnation. I'm just saying, from the scientific point of view, it's unusual. Okay, it is true that second with the highest divorce rate. Oh, by the way, the Bible Belt Christian divorce rate is so high that in some areas it's as high as 20% more than the general population, which is I mean, that says a lot all by itself. Non-practicing Christian, well, no, let me do the Seventh-day Adventists. Seventh-day Adventists are second. I have a problem with that, personally. Second highest at 49%. So the national average is 50%, we're at 49%. Scientifically, people usually say if you're within 2 to 3 points, standard measurement of error, as they call it, then it's the same. So there's no real difference between 49 and 50. It's just who's doing the measurement. So you could say that we are right there at the national average, or I should say, Seventh-day Adventist Christians are right there at the national average as practicing Christians. Okay, non-practicing Christians had the third lowest. Non-practicing Christians, people who, you may know that 90% of Americans consider themselves Christian, by the way. If you ask somebody in the street, they'll say, yes, I'm a Christian. And that'll happen 90% of the time. It doesn't mean that they actually have a church that they go to every Sunday or every Saturday. It doesn't mean that at all. It just means that they've been raised in the church, they identify with the church. Okay? Atheists have the lowest rate. It's not low by 20%, but it's low by a few percentage points, which begs the question, is it really spirituality? Spirituality that is the abiding factor, the greatest factor that leads to separation and divorce. If you just went by this statistic, then you would say that no, it couldn't possibly be. There have to be other factors. Okay? I do understand what the lady's saying in the back about being attacked by the devil, and yes, it makes very logical sense. I'm going to leave the ones that are on my side alone, and I'm going to attack everybody else that I don't have or I want. Before I get into this quote, I have to tell you there are 4 areas of compatibility. It's not on the screen, but let me run through them. There is social compatibility, and that's observable by all. It's what you see when you meet someone. There is moral and spiritual compatibility, also observable. You go to a church, you can see who the active members are, but that's about morality, not necessarily spirituality, but morality. There's physical compatibility, and that's the compatibility that you experience physically. You hear people talking about being physically compatible. This is something that in Christian groups you generally are not allowed to explore. Whereas there are a lot of atheists that would be okay with that. And then there is relational compatibility, which is what we will cover for the rest of my presentations. And that one is covert, it's hidden, it's unknown. It's a part of your personality that you don't really get to know about until you commit it, either by marriage or by verbal commitment. The problem with the atheists is they don't have, and I'm saying this loosely, they don't have a God to go to. When they want to make a decision, they have to make a decision based on all the facts. I have a few friends that are atheists, and I have to tell you, and some of them are pretty good friends of mine, so I ask them a lot of questions. And when they make decisions very, very differently. And it makes me wonder if this is part of what the Bible means when Christ said, the children of darkness, they are wiser than the children of light. The next time you have a chance to read that, read it and try and see what kind of meaning you will get from it. But he actually said they're wiser. And what did Christ mean by that? Because that makes no sense. We're connected to the source of all wisdom, but they're wiser. And by that he means in their daily, secular, worldly dealings, they make decisions quite differently from how you and I make it. My friends, they'll do a credit check on you if they're thinking seriously about marriage. They're going to do a credit check. They're going to do a background check. They're going to make sure that you're not in the database of some police force somewhere. They're going to do everything that they can to make sure that they've covered all their bases and they've checked everything out to make sure that you are legit and you are who you say you are. They may even ask you for medical records. We won't do that. Why? Because we rely on spirituality. We look at someone and we think to ourselves, okay, You are a spiritual person, you go to church, you must be okay. And we get into those relationships, we get into those marriages only to discover, shucks, I forgot. Here's this laundry list of things I could have looked at and helped myself if I had known. That is what the atheists do not make a mistake with. Does that make sense? Okay. Now look at this. This is one of my favorite authors, and this is what she said. If those who are contemplating marriage would not have miserable, unhappy reflections after marriage, they must make it a subject of serious, earnest reflection now. This step taken unwisely is one of the most effective means of ruining the usefulness of young men and women. Life becomes a burden and a curse. Pretty strong words. Pretty strong words. Your life is a burden or a curse based on who you hook up with. Okay, the vertical myth. I wanted to talk about this a little bit because we have one phenomenon that is taking place in churches across the United States, and I speak at various churches and other groups of all kinds, and I realize it's pretty national, if not universal. We have this idea that if a marriage or a relationship is not working out, something is wrong with the spiritual connection of either one of the two partners in the relationship. So our concept is either there's something wrong in the relationship between God and the wife, or there's something wrong with the relationship between God and the husband, because if they both were connected to Christ and connected to God the way they should be, then automatically their relationship will be okay. Logically, that makes sense. However, in reality, it does not happen that way. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of wives who would be closer to God if their husbands were closer to them. It's very difficult to live with someone who treats you harshly, who treats you unfairly, who continues to call himself a Christian, but treats you in a way that you feel like you're living in hell on earth. It's very difficult. It's damaging to relationship. And the interesting thing is, we spoke about this morning, before Eve did what she did, before Eve went to the tree and picked the fruit, the first mistake she made was leaving her husband's side. That was the first mistake. Very often, we have a breakdown in our triangle when we have a breakdown in the marriage. And that's something that we need to consider. So I have it here. One, the break occurs here, and before long, the break occurs there, and then there. We have to be more mindful of how we treat each other. We are responsible. We all realize that we're responsible for the children. You know that favorite scripture, where are the children that I have, given to you? Where are they? We know about that scripture, that text. But what about, where is the husband that I gave to you? What about, where is the wife that I gave to you? How did you treat that spouse that I gave to you? Do we expect that those questions would never be answered or never be asked? We have to be really careful. Okay, now let's talk about something more fun, because you guys are really quiet on me on that one. I call this one the Eleazar Test. And as you know the story, he prayed for a wife for Isaac. He was the servant of Abraham. Isaac was 40 years old, his mother had died, and it was time for him to move on. His father was having a real difficult time, and so the father and his servant prayed and asked God, please help us to find someone for this boy. He cannot go on grieving for his mother. I mean, come on, he's 40 years old, he needs to start his own family. I need to have a grandchild, and in those days, grandchildren for those patriarchs, it was really important. So he sent him abroad and he said, hey, you're not going to take my son back, in those lands. You're going to go out there yourself and you're going to find a good woman and you're going to bring her back. You find somebody that is God-fearing for my son. But when he got to his destination, he did two things differently, at least differently from how I would. One, I thought, hey, why not simply ask God to send you the one? You know how we always looking for the one? We're all looking for a soulmate, right? I need to find my soulmate. I know he's out there. I need to find my soulmate. I know she's out there. We're looking for the one. So he's sent out there to find the one. I would just have said, hey, God, please send me the one. I'm going to sit right here and let her walk through that door and let her be the one. And whoever walks through there at 4:15, she's the one. I know you could make that happen. You're God. You could make that happen. That's not what he did. What did he do? He decided to use a test. Didn't make sense to me at the time. If he insisted on a test then, why not ask her about her Christian walk, or if she knew the creation story, you want to make sure she doesn't believe in evolution, or, how she felt about idols. Idols was a big deal in those days. Everybody had an idol. So ask her, hey, how you feel about idols? That would be my test. And if she says, hey, down with idols, up with God, down with idols, I'll be like, okay, good, you're the one. Is that what he did? No. What he did is he gave her the kindness test instead. And actually went to God and said, listen, this is how I'm going to do this. I am going to go, I'm going to sit there, and whoever walks by here and decides to give me some water to drink, and then waters my camels also, I'm going to know that that's the one that you've chosen for my servant Isaac. The kindness test. And he expected God to go along with it. It was his idea. If you read the reference again, it was his idea. He posed this to God. Let's use this, God, as this. Let's use this as a test. And God went along with it. He was interested in her heart. Remember, we talked about two things this morning when God was testing Adam before the fall. He said two things. I want you, basically, he didn't say it, but he implied it. He wanted Adam to find someone that he felt he could be intimate with, like the animals, and he wanted him to find someone that he could communicate with, like those prairie dogs that we talked about. So, Eleazar gave us the first half of our compatibility test. We talked about kindness, and we talked about intimacy, one of two traits. Now, we're just about getting ready to take our test, so I have to tell you a little bit about research. When I started this research, I had known about some psychologists that actually, and I'll tell you his name too. I'm sure he doesn't mind his name being mentioned because it's all over the place. His name is Dr. Gottman. And if you've ever heard about Dr. Gottman, they call him the love guru. And what Dr. Gottman can do is, if you and your partner, spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, walked into his office and you sat there, he would step out of the room and you'd carry on a conversation and you would be thinking that it's just you waiting for the good doctor, right? Except that he has dozens of cameras in this room set up, checking your every intonation, your every eye movement, whether you rolled your eyes at your husband, whether you were smiling, whether you used contempt in your voice. And when you thought that nothing was happening, then he steps in. 10 minutes later, apologizes for being late. And then he's like to say, okay, we're done. You can go now. And you're like, wait. We paid $100. Tell us something. And he's like, well, I'll call you. And then you leave, and then he goes in the back. He looks at his computers. He does his analysis. And his analysis can tell you with 85 to 90% accuracy if your marriage or your relationship is about to fail or will fail in less than 5 years. Going through school, I was amazed. But this man, he also graduated from MIT. And if you know MIT, they're all into mathematics a lot, right? So he has a very mathematical approach, very scientific approach. So I read it and I was impressed, but then kind of lost the impressed feeling after a few months. And what I thought to myself is this: how is it going to help me if there is a man that could tell me when my relationship is about to end in a few years? I mean, how am I going to use that kind of information? Am I going to get a good divorce attorney? I mean, how is this supposed to help me? So I determined then and there to come up with a test. That could tell me in advance whether or not a relationship was likely to last. 5 years of research. It was no easy test. I mean, if you think about it, it's a test that's supposed to be predictive. I am supposed to look at you and your significant other and tell you, okay, here's a test. Take my test, and my test will tell you what kind of a probability you have, what kind of a chance you have that the two of you would make it. Actually, in the beginning, it worked like a charm. It still does. But then I had a lot of married couples that were interested. So what I did is I tweaked the test a little bit, and now the test could tell a couple whether or not they had pitfalls, even if they said that they had a great marriage, whether or not they had pitfalls down the road that they were soon going to come to, like bump down the road. So it could do those two things. If you were married and you took the test and it told you, okay, life is good now, you and your husband, you're happy, but I could see that down the road you'll have a problem, what the test allows you to do, or what the book allows you to do is, the book allows you to tweak your relationship so that you could change the outcome. Does that make sense? Because if you only could find out whether or not the two of you are compatible and you couldn't fix it, it's kind of useless. The nice thing about it is the fix is easy, real simple. It's just a matter of going back to the days when you guys were dating, when you guys were courting, going back to those days. Real easy. Tweak a few things and keep doing it. Real easy. But anyway, so that's all in the book, and that's all about the personality test that I decided I needed to create. I have to say that I got some help. You see, I have on there 2004 research. Before I could do that, any decent or reputable psychologist would want to see what the rest of the literature, said. And what they actually were finding is because every therapist out there wants to do some research. Everybody wants to come up with the new fix, the quick fix. I could fix relationships. If I find some little variable that nobody else heard about, I could fix things. After thousands, tens of thousands of participants that they got to do this research, every single time, no matter what the problem was, it was distilled right down to two things: communication and intimacy. And by intimacy, I mean, affection, showing someone that you care. Those two things, no matter what. And they did the test over and over, and it never changed. So immediately, I decided I needed to come up with a test that would measure those two things. The only trick is I had to come up with my own mix. You have to change something, because everybody knows about communication and intimacy, and yet still the divorce rate is 50%. So there has to be some aspect of it that's causing the problem. So here's what I discovered. After 5 years, I discovered that we actually have two personalities. And this is very important to remember. Two personalities. You have a social personality, and you have a relational or relationship personality. The social personality's job is to present you in the best light, even if it means pretending to your significant other, the person that's interested, that you're generous, that you're kind, that you're really interested, that you're interesting, that you're exciting, that you're flexible, that you're understanding, that you're compromising, you're affectionate, secure, good listener, not too talkative, but confident. Sounds like the perfect person, right? But you guys have all gone on dates, and even those of you that are married, you know what it was like when you were dating. He did not present himself like a schmuck, did he? No, he came with the flowers. He took you to nice dinners. He even helped with some of the schoolwork. You probably learned that he couldn't cook. And then all of a sudden, he forgot how to cook when the marriage started, right? Now, why is that? Is it a pretense? Is he faking? Same thing for the women. I know a few women well that hid a lot of skeletons in the closet. Some women I know personally even went so far as to not tell the guy that she had a couple kids, which she left at the mom's house. So, yes, people present what they want to present. Okay, right now we are going to go into the part that you guys are all waiting for, which is the test. I have a few assistants that will help me pass out this test. So this test is actually going to tell you what your personality type is. So be honest. If you're sitting next to husband, if you're sitting next to wife, you cannot collaborate, no collaboration. Just be honest. Take the test as quickly as you can so that we could make room for someone else. Sure. I'll show you right now. The relationship personality is the personality that emerges after the commitment is made or the marriage is sealed. After you married or you committed. And what actually happens is nobody could put up the act for too long. So whatever you thought you were seeing, that's the social personality. But the social personality retracts once the relationship begins. And what you see is what you get. The person you see then is the person that you have. Now, when you take this test, you are going to have one of 4 personalities. You either have XX, which means that the person that you're with, well, if this is your personality, it means that you're an X-communicator. And what that means, in a nutshell, is that you believe that a relationship is built on communication. You use communication to do the heavy lifting in a relationship. And I'm sure all of you have been with someone who didn't feel that same way and felt that, why do we have to talk about it? Do we have to bring this up again? Honey, how was your day? Same. You know, it's the same job. It doesn't change. I mean, do you really want me to talk about that again? Yes, I would say yes to that. And so you could be an X communicator, and then you have the emotional X, which means that you like affection. You like to be told, I love you. You like the person to make you feel like you matter, like you count. And then you have XY, which is another combination. This person is also a good communicator, but they're more unemotional. This is the person that doesn't like the affection, needs a little bit of personal space, needs a little bit of distance. This is the person that will hang out with the boys on a Friday and come home late. This is the person that spends a lot of time on the job, maybe 12, 13 hours on the job. And basically, unemotional, not too much public display of affection. They're just not very affectionate. And then you have the YY personality, which is the Y communicator, and this person, again, an emotional Y. You know what an emotional Y is. And then the last one is the YX. This person is a Y communicator and an X, emotional X. And when you take this test, I can tell you already, we have it down to such a science that if you are past a certain number of points in your difference between your partner, we already know that you will have problems. If not now, it's just a matter of when. So those are the 4 types. So when you take that and you're done, I'll be right up here, and the brave ones can tell me what you are. It's okay. There's no right or wrong answer. It's just a personality. And the trick is to find someone or to be with someone that matches your personality. If you're already married and they don't match your personality, then we have to tell you how to tweak it. That simple. Okay? I'll be right. So you have 4 personality types. You actually have then a 25% chance if you were to just pick someone randomly. You know, you went to Stater Brothers and you saw someone, they looked a little lost, and you felt, let me help him out. And you went up to him and conversation got struck and one thing led to another and you guys dated and then finally married. Believe it or not, that's a chance meeting. And so if you did that, you have a 1 in 4 chance of meeting someone with your personality type. These are the 4 types that you have. So the person might be really, really good with communication, but very unaffectionate. Or the person could be good with communication, but very unaffectionate. Sorry, the second one. Or the third one, when I say Y communicator, a Y communicator means somebody who has a low need of communication. And by the way, what distinguishes this, and I don't mean to distract you, so hopefully you could do 2 things at once. What distinguishes this theory from any other theory, especially when they talk about communication and intimacy, is what we found is, whereas everybody else looks at style, communication style, this looks at communication need. We actually found that when you don't communicate with a partner who needs it, it affects their hormonal balance. There are some hormones that we found scientifically are produced in the body of someone who needs communication. And that hormone, unfortunately, is responsible for feelings of closeness. So imagine if you needed communication and your husband thought it was okay to come home every day and say, I'm tired, honey. Could we not talk about this? I really don't, could you not tell me about the kids right now? And did that every day. Your hormone levels for closeness are depleted. This is how serious it is. Same thing for emotions. Emotions, affection, touching, those produce even more of that hormone that causes you to feel close to the person that you're with. And the science it's very clear and it's all over the place. So when you break up with someone, for instance, we already know it takes you about 72 hours for that hormone to deplete to such a place where you feel like, you know that feeling that if you've ever broken up with someone you were really in love with, where you felt like you were just going to die? It takes 72, there's a hormone, by the way, responsible for that feeling. And this is a second hormone. It's a hormone that was responsible to prevent you from breaking up and separating from that person. These are all the hormones that God placed within us, because remember, in the original plan, no one was ever supposed to go their separate way. And to assist that, he gave us hormones that would keep us together. But unfortunately, we don't live in that world. So you find yourself needing communication, a lot of communication, and you find yourself with someone who doesn't, and they won't give it to you because they don't have it. This is not part of their personality. And so you actually feel resentment, and you feel uncomfortable. And this isn't everybody. There are some of you that have made adjustments. We'll talk about that when we talk about hormones tomorrow. But there are some of you who are great adjusters. As a matter of fact, I can already tell you, if you have an XX personality, in your relationship, you are the adjuster. The last time I spoke in Oakwood, not too long ago, there was a couple they came up to me and they said, oh, we don't need the book. We don't need your book. I said, oh, just take the bookmark. And then they said, okay, we'll take the bookmark. We'll give it to somebody that needs it. I said, but just tell me something. So you guys are happy, huh? How long have you been married? They said 29 years. I was like, good for you, because that's what I want. I want to hear long marriages, good marriages, happy marriages. So you've been married for 29 years, huh? And they're like, yes, okay, so we need to go. And they were getting ready to walk off. I said, hey, let me ask you one question. So in this relationship, who's the one that makes most of the adjustments? And the wife answered first. She's like, we both do. And then the husband said, no, we don't. You don't adjust for anything. I make all the adjustments. The reason why we're still married is because I make all the adjustments. He bought the book. Yeah. So this X and Y thing, it's very different from what's out there. It's a needs-based model, is what we call it. If you need it and you're not getting it, it affects you hormonally. It affects how happy you're going to be. And what they found is people who are in marriages where they still feel lonely, and by the way, we're going to talk about that too tomorrow. If you're in a marriage where you're married, but you're as lonely as you were when you were in college, where your mate feels like a roommate, those people tend to live about 6 or 7 years shorter than people who are in fulfilled marriages where both partners are given to the relationship equally like Adam and Eve did before the fall. Does that make sense? Okay. So I'll give you a few more minutes, very few, well, 1 more minute. And then those of you that are finished, you can tell me what your type is. And those of you that are not, you can hold on to your papers and we'll discuss that tomorrow at the next session. Oh, you want me to give the hormone name away? It's called oxytocin. It's called the cuddle hormone or the love hormone. And everybody has it. Animals have it, humans have it. It's the same hormone we all have. And if you have it, you want to be held, you want to be close, and if you don't, yeah?
You don't have the communication. It's like you're married, but you're not because you feel lonely.
Yeah.
How does that work for people who are not in marriages then? Like, let's say you're in a situation like that and you get out of it. Does that still affect your lifespan? That's my question.
To be honest with you, the lifespan of single people in general is less. So, and it's the same logic, it's the same reasoning. They found that people who are single, who stay single, who die single, they too die somewhere between 4 and 7 years earlier. Some people go as far, some research shows as far as 10 years younger than they should. We need that companionship as much as you think you don't. And a lot of young people in their 20s and 30s go on feeling that they shouldn't, but by the time they get to their 40s and their 50s, they realize, oh my gosh, you know, I need a companion. I need someone to talk to other than my cat. And then it's too late because we have a window. We have a window of time when it's easiest to find someone, you know. You get up to that 40, 50 range, and it's difficult. It's very difficult. So, yes, it's important. If you, and again, here's the other thing. Y-type people that are in the audience, no offense, I'm just putting it out there. X-types have disadvantages, Y-type have disadvantages. Y-type people, of the people that we tested, the people who were loners, who felt, I don't need anybody. Matter of fact, I like to be here by myself. I don't like to, you know, if I want to spend a weekend by myself and shut my door. Actually, my brother is like that. My mother doesn't understand it. I had to explain to her XY theory and how it works. My brother will lock his door on Friday night. He keeps his Sabbath at church or at home. And no matter who rings that bell, no matter who calls on that phone, he's not answering it. And you call on Monday morning and you say, are you alive? Or are you sick? Are you in the hospital? And he's like, no, I wanted to be alone. I asked him to take the test. He has a YY personality. No surprise. I asked my mom to take the test. She has an XX personality. No surprise, because she's bothered by his behavior. My father, who is YY, he thinks it's normal. He says, leave the boy alone, he's fine. If the house burned down, somebody will call you, maybe a neighbor. So these personality types, they govern how you do everything. Unfortunately, they govern how you raise children. They govern how you discuss finances. They govern how you argue. Y types do not like straight up confrontation and argument. The Y types will be the ones who will say, honey, can we discuss this another time? And they really don't mean another time. They're really hoping that you'd forget and that you never bring it up again. They want to sweep it under the rug. Why? Because they think that time and space heals all wounds. Not X-types. X-types think that we need to talk about this. This is not going to get resolved until we talk about it. So we have to talk about it until it's fixed. And I will keep bringing it up until it's fixed. That's an X-type. And Y-types are like, no, I don't want to hear about this again. Please don't bring it up again. You ask a Y-type a question, those of you that have extreme Ys, I've had some of those in my life. Extreme Y-types, they need time to process the answer. You still waiting. You standing there because you're thinking this is an easy question, and you standing there waiting. And they're like, what are you waiting for? And then they explain, I don't have an answer for you. I have to think about it. And you're thinking, seriously? You have to think about whether or not we should put the cat down, whether we should take the cat to the vet? And they're like, yes, I need to think about it. I need to process. That's not how X-types do it. X-type process everything out here. Let's talk about it. That's how we process it. We talk about it, not Y-types. Let me think about it and then I'll give you my answer. Really? I'm not a subordinate. I mean, you don't think about it and give me your answer. We have to discuss this. Everything is different between how X-types and Y-types do everything, and it's the reason why there's so much marital and relationship discord. So the important thing is find out what your personality type is, find out what your partner's personality type is, and begin to work on it before it destroys itself. Does that make sense? Okay. Okay, yeah, so, and when you say you don't mind being alone, you don't mind being outside of, not in a relationship?
Much, yeah, or like locking myself in my room. I mean, like when my mom and dad and my sister are doing something that I don't like, then I don't mind being alone, but I'm also very communicative, talking, and, well, I mean, I like being together, but if I'm alone, it doesn't bother me either.
How many siblings do you have?
3, technically.
And which are you?
I'm the middle one.
Yeah, okay. Unfortunately, we have other things that affect any theory. And you know what they say about middle children, right?
No.
Honest?
Honestly, I never heard anything about it.
No, I'm saying that you're being honest. Middle children tend to be the ones that are neglected. The first one gets a lot of attention, set a good example for your brother, yada, yada, yada. The last one is the baby, gets all the attention, and the middle one often complains about neglect. So what do you think middle children do?
Cope?
They cope by learning to be by themselves.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else wants to quickly tell me what your personality type is? We'll have to talk separately, but borderlines usually could go either way as long as you stay close to where you are. Borderline means like you 20 or for your score. You cannot date someone beyond about 10 points, 7 to 10 points. So if you're borderline and you decided, and is it communication?
Yes, communication's
Okay.
20.
So you need to stay away from those yapping guys, those talkative guys that are like 35 and 40. You need to stay far away from them because it'll be a problem.
I'll let my husband know that. Thank you.
Don't tell him I said anything. But no, obviously somebody's making an adjustment, and that's good. I see the adjustments all the time. And listen, 2 things. If you love each other, you'll make an adjustment. If you have a commitment to relationship, you'll make an adjustment. If you have a strong spiritual connection, where you feel that this is what you need to do, you'll make the changes, you'll make the adjustments. So I don't want you guys to leave here thinking that this is hopelessness. This isn't hopeless. It just means if you're already married, you'll have a little bit of work to do, you'll have a little bit of adjustment to make, and perhaps a lot of prayer. All right? Okay, so that's it for today. Thank you very much. You've been a wonderful audience again.